Films always in exotic places and sunny scenes. Must be the Scottish borders.
I've actually had the beach, which is really fun.
Oh, wow. That's some backdrop. Well, I think we'll get started. So a very warm welcome to everybody. I'm Rebecca and I'm one of the directors for the Royal Youth Project. And we've also got with us Alana today, who is our communications and project officer. But I'm not going to talk too much about us because it's very much about Owen and Brenda's today. But this is the first of a series of webinars / chat rooms. We're calling them the Royal Youth Project Café, where you can come and hear from projects and speakers such as Owen to hopefully inspire you to maybe set up your own project or your own business idea, or it may be that you just want to find out a little bit more about a particular project or a business like Owen's. And today we're very much focused with the first one on the inspiring story that Owen has to tell, but also if you can't get funding from the usual funding streams, where do you go to get support, and how can you take control of it yourself by possibly using a crowdfunding mechanism? So Brenda will touch on that. But we very much want these to be led by young people. So our chair for today is Laura McCulloch, and Laura is part of the Royal Youth Project community. She is a young person herself in Dumfries and Galloway, and has recently gone through a facilitator training program that we ran that some of you on here joined. The purpose of Laura chairing is to share some of her own experience, but also to help everybody here on the call make sure you feel part of it. So feel free to chip in and get involved as much as you want. I think I'll hand over to you, Laura, to introduce yourself and take over.
Thank you, Rebecca. Hi everyone, it's lovely to see you all today, and a great big welcome to our grand opening of the Ideas Café. Personally, it's lovely to see some familiar faces and some new faces, which is brilliant. I hope you're all excited today to hear from our two speakers. I know I certainly am, and I've been looking forward to it all week. For myself, I've been involved in the Royal Youth Project for about a year now and attended the festival last year, and also created a Rural Loop magazine, which was linked in with the project for my university project, which was very exciting. Before we get started today, there's a few bits of housekeeping that I'll just go over before we hear from Brenda and Owen. I think everyone nearly has, but if we could just put our microphones on mute, please, while we hear from our two speakers, that'll stop any interference. Thank you.
So basically,
And we would also really love to know exactly who is on the chat with us today. So if you just go to the bottom of your screen, you will see the chat option. And if you could type your name and where you're from, that would be brilliant. And we can have a look through. Thank you.
And we're just going to run a quick poll. So our first poll is just, I completely forgot to mention this in my section. So we're just going to ask you to tell us the horrible question, but how old you are, because the Royal Youth Project is focused very much on youth, and we're just keen to see which age bracket you will fall into. But I promise we won't judge, and it's anonymous, so we won't tell any of the results. So just give you a couple of seconds to fill that in. And that's great. I think that's probably nearly everybody there, Alana. And we'll share the results. Thank you very much. So it's great to see so many of you here that are young. And we're also going to ask you why you've joined us today. So we've got a second poll. Pop up. So we want to really understand what's motivated you to join today. Are you here because you've got an existing business but you want to find out more about how you can take that forward? Have you got an idea but you're not sure really how to take it and progress it, but you'd like some support? Have you got an idea but you've no idea how to finance it? Or are you looking to start a business so you can have more flexibility from home? Has the recent lockdown changed the way of thinking and you don't want to go into an office anymore and you want to have more control? Or are you just here out of curiosity, a bit like me and some of the other people as well? So if you could just have a quick click on that one. I'll just give you a few minutes. And while you're completing that, I'm wondering if Jane can hear us.
see she's just joined.
Yep, I can.
So if you want to say hello to James, my fellow director on the Rural Youth Project, so it'd be nice just to have a welcome from James.
Well, I understand that.
Hello, everybody.
Enjoying sunshine up in Aberdeenshire. So that's really interesting. So thank you ever so much for everybody completing that. So it's great to see so many of you here with existing businesses, but also some of you here who would like to maybe take a business idea forward. And we hope today will really support you to do that. So thank you very much, and I'll hand back to you, Laura.
Thank you very much, everyone. That's great, and it'll be really helpful for us later on. For anyone that's just joined, hello, I'm Laura, and I'm going to be facilitating today. It's lovely to see you all. If you wouldn't mind just putting your microphones on mute for anyone who's just joined, just to prevent any interference when we hear from Owen and Brenda. So after we hear from our two speakers today, we're going to run a discussion and questions section. I'll go over the housekeeping for that afterwards, because I'm sure we're all itching to hear from our two speakers. First up today, we have a very inspiring young man, Owen Foster. Owen is 18 and he is an amazing young entrepreneur who's set up his own business called Owen's Angus Jams. Like many of you on here today, Owen has a passion and he has stuck with it from a very young age and overcome some hurdles to get to the successful spot that he's at today. Very much looking forward to hearing from you, Owen, and finding out more about your story. If you would like to start and take it away, that would be brilliant. Thank you, Owen.
So can everyone hear me before I start? Does it sound okay? Yeah, perfect. Right. Well, hi everyone. I'm Owen, obviously, 18 years old, almost 19 in a week or so. So getting old now. But I started my business, or I started looking into business when I was 12. So I've always grown up with like parents that have businesses and have been involved in business. So I was brought up in it. So I've always been interested in it. I was always the person that would be hiding behind the door trying to listen into conversations that I probably shouldn't be listening to at the same time. So my first involvement in business was when I was 12. I started selling eggs around my local village. So I was doing that for a couple of years. So I was buying the eggs from a farmer and then adding like 50p on a box and just go around the village and selling them. So I did that for roughly 2 years. And then the egg supply dried up. So I was like 14. I was like, oh, what am I going to do now? So I went to my grandma, who was actually making a pot of jam that day. And I was like, so, oh, you always make jam. She's made jam for every summer that I've known her for. Like we always get jam from her. So I was like, oh, could you teach me how to make a pot of jam? So I went back one afternoon. I made 50 jars in one go. And I brought them back here, sold them around the village again at £3 a jar. And I sell all 50 within a week. And I was like, oh, wow, £150 in a week at 14 years old is a lot of money. I didn't have anything to pay for anything at that time either. So I was like, I can buy a lot of sweets with this. So after just doing that, I was at school, obviously. I went to school up at Lothalen, up in Johnshaven, and I did my first ever stall there, actually. Would have been just a few months after when I just started doing it there. So I started up there, did a stall, and I sold, I think it was 80 jars in one go. So I was like, oh wow, this is kicking off. So I was like, and from there we basically just decided we only had one flavour to start with because we could only literally cook it on like a pot at home. So it was one pot at a time. So it took ages. So I always had to do it with grandma as well because I was still learning how to make it because it's a lot more complex than you think it would be. So after the first stall, I think it was then, what did we do after that? We just started doing loads of smaller events. So we had like local markets and stuff. We'd go to them, we'd just have the jam. I think in Cooper Angus was the next one. And we did like 100 jars or something. So even though we were selling a lot of things, it was taking a lot of time to make them because we were still in the house. So we just started building up from there. And then my first major contract was Glam's Castle. where I actually it was in the paper. I think they saw me at the car washing in Forfar because I had put a banner up there, and they saw it and they phoned me up and they're like, oh, we're doing like a test competition basically, and whoever wins gets the contract to supply Glam's Castle with the jam. So I was like, oh, I'm definitely up for that. So I put my stuff in and it won. They said it was won by a mile. So I was actually over the moon with that. And then obviously that was the first time I think that I was in the papers as well. So it was in the Courier, the Telegraph, the Scottish Mail, I think it was in as well. It was in quite a few papers, picked up. And then obviously from there it just snowballed. So the first thing you've got to learn is obviously we had our own individual jars for the Owen's Angus jam side of it. And then obviously I had to get different jars for Glam's, which they wanted it labelled under their own label. So throughout the whole process of beginning to expand, there's always been a lot of learning to go with it as well. So after that, then Glam's Castle we got into the catering side of jam as well. So we're getting more contracts for the jars, selling it in shops and stuff. But then we actually got some catering contracts as well. So we were selling the 2.7 kilo tubs as well. So we got into that side of it. And we obviously expanded on the flavours. So I think we went up to, at one point we had 12 flavours of jam we were doing. And this was all still from home at this time. So I was still at school as well. So I was trying to balance between school, making jam, and then dealing with all the Facebook and everything side of it as well. So when I turned 16, it was just getting too big for the house. So we were like, oh, what am I going to do now? So we went looking for premises, and we actually found somewhere out in Forfar, which was like a smaller unit within a industrial unit. And I was like, so we moved into there. It was very expensive. It was like tens of thousands to move, because we didn't know how much obviously all the big catering equipment was going to be. So obviously once we set up the unit, we had to find a way of funding it, because obviously I didn't have 10-15 grand just lying about to spend on a unit. So we were looking at all the options. So like we went to Business Gateway, there was no cash. We went to the Angus Council, there was no money. We went Princess Trust, obviously you've got to be 18, which I wasn't at the time, so there was no funding there. So there's just grants. We applied for like the Young Scottish Edge, and there was no, you had to be able to turn over $250,000 within 2 years to be eligible to apply for funding. So it wasn't realistic. And then obviously I got into the top 20 young entrepreneurs for the TransferWise competition, and there was a chance of winning money in that. But it was like, once you got into the top 20, they then picked the top 5 who then got to go on and have a chance to promote their business. But I didn't get into the top 5, so I was just in the top 20. So the way I had to go to was crowdfunding. So obviously we'd never done anything like crowdfunding before, so we had no idea. So we went and got some help from the council, and they were like, look, you'll be the first business that we know of to offer, like, to do this type of crowdfunding. You'll be the first private enterprise basically to go for crowdfunding, because obviously crowdfunding is mostly used for social enterprise, or charities use crowdfunding to get money. So we had to set up a crowdfunding page and just try and push it a lot. It was really hard to do. We were like, oh, how do we do this? So we basically, our target was £5,000 to start with, which was going to buy some of our equipment and everything. So we basically, once we got onto the crowdfunding page, we just try and push it as much as possible, but it was really hard to start with, because obviously people where we are didn't actually really know what crowdfunding was. So it was basically, when you do the crowdfunding, you've got to try and educate people as well. So they've got to learn what it is, they've got to basically feel your story for them wanting to give you money basically. So it's quite hard to do. But we managed to get, I think it was 2,500 in a month from the generosity of people to allow me to then further expand into my unit. So then obviously got into the unit, got more contracts, and just started to build it up again, doing more shows, stuff like that. And then after about a year, a new place came up just up the road, 2 minutes away from me, which was a lot better than the place I was in, which allowed me to have the kitchen in the back, farm shop out the front, and parking off the road as well. And it was like the same price. So I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to spend another fortune to move all the stuff to this place because it was just too good an opportunity to miss. So now I've got obviously the jam in the kitchen. We also are doing a farm shop and takeaway. So we opened that up during lockdown, about halfway through. So that's been really busy. And then, so we've been doing that for the past 2 months, I think it is now, 2-3 months. So we're just trying to build on that because we've always got to be, in business, there's always opportunities to expand and diversify. And we thought, well, instead of just sitting here doing nothing during lockdown, because we were ready to go just before, we thought, well, why not let's get this place open and see what we can get going. So now we've got obviously the takeaway, the farm shop, and then obviously I'm still doing my jam out with the hours of the farm shop. So there's still quite a lot of stuff to be done. So, but obviously just not, at the moment I've got my e-commerce website set up. That's been going for about 6 months properly. So I'm selling the jam online as well. All the shows, obviously, when everything gets back to normal, we're doing all the shows as well. Summer and winter shows. The farm shop's been really busy for the jam. Contracts have been really busy. So yeah, but that's where I'm at just now, really.
Thank you very much, Owen. That was really, really fantastic to hear. I know personally, I feel inspired after hearing from you, especially the fact that you've came from doing this from such a young age. And I love the link that it's all started with your granny and the family link. You've really, really clearly got a passion there, and you've built your way up and worked your way up. So it was really great to hear. Thank you very much.
Yes.
What actually initially inspired you, Owen, to start up your own business? Was it something from a very young age that it's just always been burning inside you, or did something?
Well, I think it was, I never really liked school. It was really not fun at all. I was stuck in it. I was like, this is pointless. I absolutely hate sitting down and trying to learn something and just write it. I would rather be doing something, like learning physically. But I actually was in school till 5th year because my mum made me stay somehow. I don't know how she did that to me. And then I did a year at college, which she once again forced upon me without my choice, really. So I was doing all that plus trying to balance the jam at the same time. And I was like, well, I don't want to be doing a job 9 till 5 working for someone else, when I was thinking that I can do it myself and work the hours I want to work. But it turns out I actually did more hours now than I would if I did for someone else. But even though it's harder work, the reward is better, I think, much higher if you can get it right. And I think if anyone wants to try something, then they should, because in this day and age, like, you should just go for it, because as you see, there's loads of stories of people, just success stories, so you should just give it a go, basically.
Well, thanks, Owen. You're certainly
I wouldn't be where I am today, so try and use the knowledge that people have around you as well.
Brilliant. We'll keep that tip in mind. Your crowdfunding point is fantastic, and personally something that I didn't know a huge amount about. So we are now going to move on to our next speaker, which is Brenda. Thank you very much for joining us today, Brenda. Brenda lives in the village of Burnham in rural Perthshire, and like many of us rural people, she has a number of jobs and is a very busy lady. Brenda is a crowdfunder coach, and she also runs and owns an eco-hostel B&B business in Perthshire, and also works for GrowBiz, helping businesses start up and to grow. Brenda is also an environmentalist and climate change professional, and has worked with both as a fundraiser and a funder. So Brenda, we all can't wait to hear some advice and tips from yourself on crowdfunding. If you'd like to take it away, thank you.
Okay, no, thanks for inviting me. And Owen reminded me my first venture into enterprise was when I was wee. My parents, like all good Irish families, got lots of holy magazines, and I went out and sold them around the doors, telling everybody that my family had no money. So it was actually quite lucrative. I earned quite a lot of money by doing that, but unfortunately my parents were mortified and they made me give all the money back. But it did definitely give me a bit of a taste for business, and I realised, like Owen, that you can make money and it's great. So so the first thing is, I don't know how much everybody knows about crowdfunding, but one of the basic things about it is it's not a new idea. It's basically like a whip round or like a raffle. It's anything that you do that gets a little bit of money in for from a lot of people to make something happen. So, for example, most of the churches that in Scotland and in Ireland, they were paid for like that. Statue of Liberty. So there's nothing new under the sun. That's the idea what crowdfunding is. A lot of people put a wee bit of money in. What we're talking about today is internet-based crowdfunding, and that's 21st century fundraising. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. And before I start, I just want to get a feel for how much people know. So can you put your hand up or wave something at the screen if you have ever supported a type of crowdfunder project? Okay, Amelia, yeah, Kat, okay, we've got quite a few people. Excellent, okay, that's really good. Has anybody, because I know I'm going to get one person for this at least, has anybody here ever run a crowdfunder? Okay, just Owen. Okay, cool. And the last one, has anybody here ever thought about it? Okay, so we've got a few. Okay, no, that's grand. I want to know what my starting point is and how much you know. So, oh, I can see, like, yeah, Cameron and Jane have thought about it as well. Okay. Right. What I'm going to go through first was I'm going to pick up some of the main questions that people ask me. And then I'm going to go through an example. And one of the starting points is, it's great that people like Owen have gone out and run crowdfunder projects because it's made my job an awful lot easier. So nowadays, a lot more people know what crowdfunding is than when Owen was doing it. So the kind of questions I get asked a lot are, what kind of projects can you fund through crowdfunding? And the answer is pretty much anything, as long as it's legal and as long as you and your project are based in the UK. So yeah, you wouldn't believe the diversity of projects we get in every day. Another question relevant to this group is, who can crowdfund? And as I say, anybody in the UK, but you do have to be 18 to set up a page. But what you can do, and we frequently get this, is people will get a guardian or somebody to help them set it up. Because we often get youth groups, all kinds of groups coming in. So yeah, you need to be 18 but get a bit of help. Another core question is, does it cost? It doesn't actually cost you anything to set a crowdfunder page up. You go online, you go to crowdfunder.co.uk and you set your page up. And people say, well, how does crowdfunder make its money? And what happens is usually they'll charge an admin fee of about 6%. So say if somebody pledged £10 to your project, about 60p, 50 to 60 pence would go to crowdfunder to pay for people like me and all the stuff behind the scenes. But the point is, you as a project owner don't have to pay that. So we always say to people, if you need to raise £100 for a project, raise 106, and then that £6 will cover your admin. And at the minute, sometimes we run different projects that actually cover the admin fees. Like if you're running a COVID-19 project, like a business type project or a community project. So, but the main point is, it doesn't cost you anything and you've got absolutely nothing to lose. So that's not a barrier. We get asked, is there a minimum or maximum amounts? And the biggest project I've worked with was a Scottish project near Scone. It was all about PPE masks for Scotland, and they got in $250,000, which is really unusual. And the smallest one I've ever seen come in last week, somebody was raising 40 quid for a planning application. And we were all quite stunned at that, but that's what they wanted to do. So there is really no minimum on it. And one of the other questions asked a lot is to say, well, who's Crowdfunder and how do we tell you apart from all the other crowdfunding companies? Because you get things like Kickstarter and Just Giving and GoFundMe. And Owen mentioned earlier on that most of the crowdfunding, because that's just a generic term for this, most of it is all just about donations. And we do donations too. So say you wanted to do a sponsored walk, or if you were setting up a project, you just wanted money, that's fine. But what we specialize in is rewards-based crowdfunding. So in that case, maybe if Owen was running a crowdfunder, he would have said, okay, if you donate £10 to my project, you can get 2 jars of jam. So the idea is that people make a donation and they get something in return. And that's what Crowdfunder is particularly good at. We're the biggest at doing that in the UK. So that's what rewards-based crowdfunding is. So that's a question people ask us a lot. And in terms of why people set up crowdfunder projects, the main motivators are people need to raise funds. They sometimes need to raise them fairly quickly. Because crowdfunder projects typically run for about 4 weeks. We find the kind of sweet spot is 4 weeks, 28 days. It's often people, they can't find another way to do it. One of the great things about working with young people are particularly good at running crowdfunders because you're less risk averse. You'll just go out, you're not jaded because you haven't had some of the knocks that older people have, and you're just up for it. Another reason why people will do it is they'll maybe want to test their idea. So say, for example, Owen was bringing out a new range of jam and he needed to expand his premises. He'll soon find that when he offers the different types of jam or other products, whichever ones sell well, that's going to give him an indication of what the public want. And he might find that something he thought was going to be really popular just isn't, and vice versa. Other reasons are sometimes people really want to grow the marketing base, because you can do the best project in the world, but if you don't market it right in Crowdfunder, it won't happen. It's all about getting a good project and telling the world and his wife all about it. So it's a really good marketing exercise. You learn an awful lot. Another advantage of it is that you can crowdfund, and it doesn't matter if you're big or a wee company. People can't really tell by your page. It doesn't matter if you're brand new or experienced. In fact, brand new companies and people with a bit of fizz to them actually do better than anything. It doesn't matter if you're rural or urban. So it's a really level playing field. So you don't have to be somebody who's really comfortable going and talking to banks. You just have to be good at telling your story. So that's the main reasons why people set up crowdfunders. Now, I work with crowdfunding pages all the time, and I don't know if any of you have gone in to have a wee nosy. So what I did was I picked out one of my favourite projects. I just stumbled across it. I only went in to look at this page to give the woman a wee bit of coaching, and I came away 40 quid lighter because I just really liked her page. And that's a sign of a good project. So I'm going to tell you in a minute about a young woman from Wales, and she set up a tea project. She basically went off to live in Japan, and whilst she was over there, she got a real taste for business. She was vegan, and she knew all the good places to go in her area if you wanted to go out and get vegan food. So she thought, I could set up a vegan kind of local tour company. And that's what she did. And she also picked up a lot of the culture. They've got a whole tea culture over there. So when she came back to the UK, she was thinking, I really don't fancy the daily grind of going into an office and sitting in a cubicle. So she looked around and thought, well, what could I do? What am I passionate about? And she's just absolutely nuts about tea. So she's also got, you'll see when I show you her page, she's got a really good eye for branding and graphics. And so she just kind of pulled it all together. And the final thing is, she heard about a program that we do. The banks, our Royal Bank of Scotland in particular, they're very, very keen to help women into business, because for every 3 businesses that are set up, new ones are set up, 2 are set up by guys. Guys are just a bit more entrepreneurial. It's only a third are from women, and the biggest barrier is generally access to money. Just like Owen was saying, it's not easy. So the banks have set up a thing called Back Her Business, and it's for if you identify as female, if you haven't earned your first £1,000 yet, and as long as you're UK based and you come up with a project, you could be eligible to take part in this. And the young woman in particular, Gabrielle, she saw this and thought, I'm going to have a crack at that. And that inspired her to go and set up a first Crowdfunder page. So I'm now going to attempt to share my screen. Where did it go? Oh, it might be desktop. Right. This is the bit that always gets me. Can you see that? Can you see that?
Not
No.
yet.
Would you like me to share it, Brenda?
Yeah, let me, oh, I've got it. I think I've got it. Can you see that?
No. Oh, not yet.
I'm going to give it one more go because I use a different program all the time. So, oh, I've hit the share button. Right. Can you see that?
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, can you see it? So it should see a page saying deliciously flavored tea. Yeah? Okay, cool. Right, so this is what a crowdfunder page looks like, just in case you're wondering. And usually you start off, this is what a good one looks like. You start off with a title at the top, something that's kind of captures what you're saying in kind of a snappy fashion. And you'll see it gives you the name of the person when they're based. The top right-hand corner is what we all call the elevator pitch. I'm sure you know what it is. You could say it in the elevator. I find I usually get asked in pubs, what's your business? And I have to capture in one sentence. So she does it really well. Let Gabrielle tell you about her business herself. I'm just going to hit play and then I'll talk you through the rest of the page.
We all deserve a moment of calm to ourselves every day, a moment to breathe and unwind. Rose and Dragon is a brand new tea company that puts an emphasis on creating a moment of calm in our everyday lives by providing a range of deliciously flavoured loose leaf teas that can help provide a mindful moment in our busy day. Mindfulness helps reduce depression and anxiety, feelings of stress and overwhelm, and helps us enjoy each day just a little bit more. I've created the tea to look good, smell good, and taste delicious in order to create a full sensory experience that can help us enjoy a mindful moment. 3 different flavours of tea will be released every month, exclusively available to Rose and Dragon subscribers. People who pledge will be the first to receive the product, which consists of 3 teas per month, and they will receive a Rose and Dragon tote bag, which will have a one-off design for people who pre-order through the crowdfunding campaign. There will also be an exclusive discount for subscribing for multiple months. It is exclusive to crowdfunders, and as such, this discount will not be available after the crowdfunding period. Rose and Dragon is going to be a completely plastic-free company, with all the packaging being either biodegradable or compostable. I'm using a cellulose-based bag for the tea, which imitates plastic, but is completely compostable and can be popped in the compost bin once you've finished the packet. The money raised from crowdfunders will go towards ensuring that all the packaging and materials used by the company are completely biodegradable and compostable, using acid-free inks for printing, and to be able to partner with a company that will plant trees in areas of need for every order, and to join the Sustainability Alliance. If you would like to pledge, please choose your reward on the right-hand side of the Crowdfunder page, and don't forget to share with your friends and family. Thank you for watching.
Okay, so we often see videos that are just it's just one shot on a smartphone. If you put a video on, it really increases your chances of engaging with people. So we say, you know, some people, 2/3 of people will look at your page on a smartphone. So you try and catch all the best stuff at the top. So we say, have a video. You'll see underneath the video, you've got all social media. And she's particularly good at using Facebook and Instagram. Down the left-hand side of the page, what you do is you tell your story. This is where you hook people. And she's got a very image-rich page, so she got lots of wonderful pictures of her product. And just on the left-hand side, she just tells the story of who she is, what she's doing, why people would be interested in it, and the time scale as well. And then down the right-hand side of the page, you'll see she's picked this particular reward. She's got a selection of rewards. You tend to put your best one, or the one that you think people will be most interested in, at the top. But what you also do is you put ones in that start kind of low for people who want to support you but don't have much cash, and then you increase the amount. So you pick a whole selection of rewards that you think will appeal to whoever your customers are. And that's what a crowdfunding page looks like, okay? Hers is a pretty good one. So hopefully I'm back in the room now. That gives you an idea. Hopefully it kind of brings it to life. In terms of, if people are interested in setting up a crowdfunding page, they often say, well, I don't know where to start. And I'd say the start is you need a project idea. A lot of you have already got a business. I saw from the poll at the start that a lot of you have got an existing business, and some of you are coming up with business ideas. So it's quite common for people to use crowdfunding when setting up a new business, or like we've got Aaron Bakery in our village. She raised 12k for that. Often when people are growing a business, they're going through a growth phase, they need new kit. That's quite common too. So you come up with the project idea, and then I would say go and have a really good nosy at our project database, and you'll very quickly become an armchair expert in what a good page looks like and what a not so good page looks like as well. You'll get a very quick feel for that. Then you just go into crowdfunder.co.uk, you set up your page for free, and then you just populate it. You're kind of guided through it. And even if you don't like reading, we've got videos that talk you through it as well. The next thing is all about the planning. Owen was saying about, go and speak to a lot of people who know about whatever you're working on. Go and talk to everybody that you know and tell everybody about what you're doing. So you can break it down to 3 phases. You plan your project, which is when you go out and work out, do all your marketing. The second bit is you put your page together, just like Gabrielle's, you go and get some inspiration. And then the last bit is you run your project. Some people think that you put a page up and you walk away. I've seen actually somebody put a page up and go on 3 weeks holidays and then wonder why the project didn't work. It's like lighting a fire. You have to tend it. You put it at the start, and I'm sure Owen would back me up on this. When you put it up, you're panicking, and you have to go out and you're like putting out lots of Facebook posts and socials, doing work with media. So you tend it and then you grow it. And if you put the groundwork in, you've got a pretty good chance of success. So, I mean, if you've got any questions, just, you can email me. It's just brenda@crowdfunder.co.uk. We've got a whole pile of coaches. We love working with young people because you lot come up with the best ideas. And give us a shout and we'll always signpost you towards some help. So that's probably the best stuff I can tell you just now.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Brenda. That was really, really interesting. I'm sure it opened all of our eyes, especially to see the example of the page and to see what works best, the example of Gabriel. So thank you very much for your time. We're now going to move on to the questions and discussion section, which is where everyone can get involved, ask any questions that you've got and get a bit of a discussion going. If anybody would like to ask a question anonymously, they can send it in the chat section to Rebecca or Lana and your name will be listed, or you can write it in the main group chat. I see there's quite a few questions coming in already, which is great, or you can click on the reactions button and put a thumbs up and we will get to you. So there's already a few questions come in here for you both. Is it best to have a target market that you tailor your crowdfunding page for, Brenda and Owen? Yeah. Thank you.
I know what we say to people is same as we do in our business. We sit down and say who is going to be interested in your project. If it was to do with my accommodation business, I would say it's the active outdoors, it's the cyclists, it's the walkers. I would tell all my family, all of your other businesses. So you build up all the different segments and then you communicate with them all in different ways. Put it this way, Owen's right about grandparents are wonderful because for a start, they'll probably pledge, but you phone your granny, you WhatsApp your pals, you pick the right tool for the job. So you break it down into sectors and then use the right tool. I mean, is that your experience, Owen, as well?
Yeah, I definitely say from my side of view, I literally was just telling anybody that would listen, to be honest, like anyone. So obviously I started off with my friends and then I spoke to, obviously since I was so young, my friends really didn't have much money, to be honest. So I went to my mum and dad's friends. I annoyed them quite a lot. Grandparents, even relatives I hadn't spoken to for years. I was like, oh, I'm doing this crowdfunding, blah, 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 blah. And then obviously we had a Facebook following, I think it was like 1,000 people or so, 2,000 people maybe by that time. And even pushing it on there, we thought, oh, we were at the start with, oh, we'll just put this up and we weren't sure how much work is required to get people to pledge behind it. So we were like, oh, we'll put this up and see what happens. We put it up and literally no one had put anything on from Facebook. And we're like, oh, what's happening? So we had to then go back again, do a few posts about what crowdfunding is, and then just try and push our story. And then it started to like snowball from there basically. And then just try and get people to share it as well. I think we got it into the newspaper, we got it into the Courier as well. So it was in the papers. Just try and get as much exposure of your story to as many people as you can possibly, I would say.
Thank you both. And Owen, what has been the hardest thing and the best thing about setting up your own business?
I definitely think the hardest thing would be just knowing what to do, because obviously when you start up a business, like, I've not got a clue. I was quite lucky in the fact that my mum and dad had been doing business, so I'd grown up in such a business orientated household. So they always, mum was an accountant as well, so she was like, she always knew that, like, the books and everything, but it was even new for them understanding, like, oh, obviously we do the whole side of it. So we basically make it, we've got to find the stuff for it, we've got to make it, jar it, label it, and then we've got to sell it as well. So we do all parts of the chain, as you would say, for it as well. So that would be the hardest bit, is just learning what to do. But I think everyone, you've just got to go for it. Like, if you're too scared to figure out, like, how to do something you're going to make mistakes no matter what you do. Like, that's the whole thing with business. You're going to make mistakes. No one's perfect, so you just got to jump in and just give it a good go. And then obviously, I think the best bit is obviously not having to do as someone else says. For me, to be honest, it's doing what I want to do. I'm my own boss. I don't have to be in. I don't have to say someone tells you. I don't have to be in like 9 till 5. Like, but it's just being able to do what I want to do. I enjoy it as well, so I'm doing something I enjoy. Like, I'm not sitting behind an office like on a computer 9 till 5 every day, Monday to Friday, because like I'd pull my hair out of that. But
Thank you, Owen. It always helps if you enjoy what you do. Another question we've got here, how much support do Crowdfunder offer? Is it the responsibility of the project to do all the work?
Yes, well, it is. I mean, it's your crowdfunder project, and we get over 200 new crowdfunder projects every day, so we can't do the work for you. But what we do is we run all kinds of stuff. If you're in one of the rural areas, we've got 9 leader areas in Scotland, rural areas that we can support, and we provide one-to-one coaching for them. The other thing we do that's really useful is we've been running these webinars on the most common questions that we get, like how to find your crowd, how to come up with really good rewards, how to come up with the perfect page, things like that. And we have we're always running webinars and workshops. We've got these 3 really good guides as well. I love the fact they're written in plain English. Anybody can understand them. And Crowdfunder really strongly encourages us as staff to run our own crowdfunder projects, which is a great eye opener, because it means that we can then, we know what it's like, we know what the main problems are. So there's a lot of support. But yeah, when you put your page up, we can help you to a certain extent, but it's your baby. You're going to have to run it. We can give you our best advice. We can't make you follow it. So there's a lot of support there. I noticed a question from Terry as well. Terry Simpson was saying, is social media interaction essential? To be honest, it plays a vital role. You can run a crowdfunder without social media. It's going to be a lot harder. We find that Facebook is really useful. I saw Owen saying that. We find that Facebook is the main way that people share the links to your page. But of course, when you put the posts up, if you put a post up that only has text, it'll only go to 1% of your followers. If it's got an image, it'll go to 4% of your page followers. If you have a video, it'll go out to 6%. And then if you interact with it more, obviously, it'll be more popular. So yeah, we say just really go for the social media. And the other things like work with journalists, bloggers, local radio, everybody you can think of, and think of your target market, whoever they are, the jam buyers. If you break your jam buyers down into different groups and say, okay, the granny jam buyers, where do they get their news from? Word of mouth, local magazines, local radio. The baby jam buyers, where do they get theirs from? So always break your media down to follow your target market.
Thank you, Brenda. I see, Ailey, you've mentioned that you've actually ran your own crowdfunding page during COVID. That's brilliant. I was wondering if you would mind sharing some top tips or a little bit about how you found setting up your crowdfunding page with everyone.
Yeah. Well, I'd had an idea for like a webcam project last year, and it was meant to start running this year, but with everything that happened during the pandemic, my wee shop didn't open. So we decided to start the webcam project during coronavirus. And I started testing webcams and things before. And once they were up and running, we decided to start a crowdfunding page. Although it wasn't on crowdfunding, it was on Just Giving, which is the same, but without like the reward side of it, where people can just donate an amount that they like. So I linked that like to my Twitter and my shop pages and things. And I had set quite a low amount, not realizing that people would like the story and like to see the island webcams, since they couldn't actually visit. So as long as people like your story and they know about you, then they like feel like they can donate to it. So I didn't know really much about the idea of crowdfunding, and I had looked it up and things, but I just like to say, maybe just go for it. If you aren't sure, there's nothing really that can go wrong. People will always donate if they like the idea, and if they don't, then that's it. But yeah, so.
Oh, that's great, thank you, Ailey. It's great to see that some people have already started setting some up and that they're going well. Has anyone else got any other questions or anything they'd like to add? You can either raise your thumb or put it in the chat. Alice,
You can always just drop me a line. I know some people, I hate asking questions in big group settings. You're more than welcome just to drop me an email, and I'm very happy to get back to you on that. So
if anyone hasn't already seen it, Brenda's email has been put in the group chat, and we'll also send out an email at the end of this session with some more information on crowdfunding and Brenda's email. Well, if no one else has got any more questions, I'll round that off. Thank you.
Laura, I think Claire has a question.
Oh, sorry, Claire, on you go.
So I know there's so many of us. It was just to go to Owen. Amazing story hearing about all your jams. Can you all hear me okay? Because my internet's not great. Yeah.
Yeah,
I actually wanted to ask a little bit about your raw materials, because you said you won the pitch to Glam's Castle, and I just wanted to know what makes your flavours so special, how you source your raw materials, a bit about the sort of story behind it.
Yeah, so definitely we use all local fruits. So all of our fruits, apart from obviously like your Seville orange marmalades, come from Spain. But your raspberries, strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, every other fruit comes from within. You've got, obviously we're the best bit of the country for growing fruit. So obviously Blueberry, Cooper Angus, Arbroath, we get all our strawberries from, Aberdeenshire as well. So it's all really local fruit. I think, and we get it literally the same morning it's picked. So we can pick it and then we'll either prepare it and freeze it, or we'll use it the same day type thing. So we'll either make jam with it, with what we can, because we get about, at the moment we're getting like 150, 200 kilos at a time. And we've got to find space to freeze it. So we try and make as much as we can. And then we've got 9 massive chest freezers where we bag them up into 2 kilo bags and then just put them in the freezer. So obviously that's what we do with them. And then, yeah, it's just, I think, just if you have quality materials, then your product at the end should be a high quality as well. And then obviously knowing Grandma's recipe and having her experience of making jam for the past 40 years has really helped as well. But even she's learned stuff from me somehow on like when we're making new flavors and stuff, because they're quite old fashioned. So they like your raspberry or strawberry. Then obviously we put a spin on it because we moved into fruit infused gins as well a couple of years ago. So we've got that side of the business. We actually take the fruit from the gin after we've made it and then put it into some of the jam. So we've got like boozy jams as well, which have been really popular as well. So yeah.
That sounds amazing. And is it just yourself and your grandma, or do you have, you said you've moved into infused gins. Are you expanding your team, or is it mainly just yourself doing it?
It's a lot. To be fair, the family has been a big involvement. Like a lot at the start, we just thought, oh, it'll just be something small, but we couldn't imagine it's growing this big. So obviously I started it with Grandma, And then my brother, he's 18, just coming up as well, so he's been involved. Is that the gin's actually named after him because he didn't want to feel left out. So he's been involved. My sister, she's only 12, but even now, like, she wouldn't think she's 12 because she can run the front of shop by herself, dealing with customers and everything for a 12-year-old. Quite amazing. And then mum and dad as well, because mum's been helping with the books and she's quite good on her hands, like know how to deal with people and stuff. So she's been involved. Dad's a chef, so he's been in the kitchen as well. So it's been a whole family. And then grandma and grandpa, obviously, when there's marmalade to be done, oranges, it takes hours to prepare. So, because you've got to cut the oranges, take out the skin, and then cut the white stuff, the pith, off. Then you've got to take the seeds out of all the oranges, separate them, bag them. So there'll be 7-10 of us around a table doing Seville orange marmalade for 8 hours in a day. But it's been a whole family thing. I think it's brought everyone closer as well, because that's a lot of time you wouldn't be spending with. Most people wouldn't be spending with their family. I mean, it has had its testing moments though as well, as you can imagine.
Amazing, thank you.
No more.
Thank you, Owen. We've actually got another question here for you. Are you happier that all your hard work has paid off over the years using crowdfunding rather than getting a grant or money at the beginning?
Well, I think obviously if the option would have been there to get a grant or something, then we would have taken it. But there just wasn't anything. I don't really see there still isn't. Every council is struggling for money at the moment anyway, as it is. So I haven't seen any sort of realistic options other than to try crowdfunding. Because what's the worst that can happen? You get no money. Like, you've given your best go, but most of the time you want to get, if you've got family, most of them are going to donate anyway. Even if it's something, it's better than nothing. But a lot of the things you look at, obviously, it depends how old you are. Because obviously, when I was 16, Princess Trust was no use to me because you have to be 18 to get anything. Because I actually emailed them and was like, "Oh, is there any chance of any funding or anything?" And they were like, "There's nothing because you're not 18." I was like, "Oh, okay." So then, obviously, you've got your Young Scottish Edge, I think it is. So they're like a competition basically where you put your business plan, everything. But I had to get my mum to help me fill it out because it was literally filling out. Really, it was I was struggling to understand some of the questions and stuff. It was really professional. You're like, if you're young, just try and do this starting out, then you're not going to be able to do it. And they wanted you by the first 5 years to be making £250,000 in 5 years or something profit. And you're like, how is that realistic for anyone starting up their own business, small business? It's not.
Thanks, Owen. And Rebecca, have you got a question?
So I've been, I've done a bit of research with Owen before, and I came across this, Owen, which I'm just going to share, which must have been a tweet that was put out by Angus Council, promoting your jam, quite clever play on how important is your personality in everything that you do, and do you, obviously it's called Owen's Jams, but do you think a business idea needs to be named after you and have your personality in it?
The only reason we named it, I think the way we named it was just because it just suited at the time and we couldn't actually think of anything else. So we're like, oh, we'll just go for that. But I think you've got to sell your story basically. You've got to make the people feel that they want to give you something. You deserve, they feel like they deserve, because if you think, at the end of the day, that's someone's hard-earned money and you've got to figure a way of basically connecting with them and then wanting to give you something to help you. So we actually did do the reward-based crowdfunding, where we did I think it was £10, you got a jar of jam, £20, you got gin, £50, something else. We built it up, obviously. And that was, I think most people though, didn't actually want the reward, they just wanted to help a young person out. So I think if you're young, definitely use it while you've got the age on your side, because even now I'm turning 19, people are going to think, oh, he's just an adult. So if you're young, just try and use it to your advantage, because people like to see young people doing something rather than playing the PlayStation or not doing much.
We found that from Crowdfund, we found the reason that people tend to support projects is sometimes they like you. Sometimes they will look at somebody like Amelia or Owen or somebody and they'll say, God, you're doing something. I wish I could have done that when I was wee. I wish I'd had the guts to do that as a young person. So sometimes that's what they identify with. Just like one says, they just want to help. Sometimes they'll look at your product and they'll just go, I love jam. Or I've got a really smelly dog and I really need the soap that Amelia makes. So sometimes it's the reward. Sometimes if it's a quirky reward or it's something they can't buy in the high street or it's really good value. So sometimes it's that. But other times it's both. And if you can get people to come in on both those angles, they want to support you and they really like your reward. That's kind of the sweet spot. And these people, you know, once somebody has, you know, signed up in your crowdfunder, they're very probably going to keep an eye on your business. So like I supported a young woman who set up a cafe in our village, and I feel like I've somehow kind of bought into it. So I find myself strangely drawn to go and buy cakes, but I do have a vested interest and I'm interested to see how she gets on. So you'll get long-term customers.
Excellent. Has anyone else got any other questions they would like to ask? I had one final one for yourself, Brenda. It was mentioned quite a lot about it's really important to sell your story and tell your story. Do you have like a top tip for doing that, for trying to get your story across within the first sort of instance?
Well, people buy from people. And so one of the best ways, I was saying earlier, video is a really good way of doing that. And so we always say, you know, when you're doing your video or whether it's Facebook post video or whatever, just you're really clear on, you know, people want to know who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it. And I mean, as I say, like a project that's got a video in it is something like 20 times more likely to be successful. So we say keep that video really short, keep it well under 2 minutes. If you can do it in a minute, great. Front load it, because as you'll all know, people glance at a video and if they don't like it in the first 5 seconds, they're just going to scroll past it. So yeah, just try and open your page and your story with a short punchy video. Yeah, and that's the main thing. Just make sure they can see your personality.
Thank you. I think if we don't have any more questions, I will round today's session off. I would just like to firstly thank Owen and Brenda very much. Two absolutely fantastic speeches, and we've learned a great deal today, and I'm sure we'll all be heading into the weekend with plenty of ideas and feel inspired. And also thank you very much to everyone who's joined today and made our first session a really great one. It's lovely to see you all and catch up. And thank you to Rebecca, Jane and Alana for, as usual, all their hard work and effort in getting today off the ground. We've got one more poll that we would like to run, so I'll hand you back to Alana, who will give us the final words. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Laura. You've done an absolutely fantastic job facilitating. Laura went through, I think, like Rebecca mentioned, our facilitator training. So this was her first time doing it. So you did a wonderful job, Laura. Thank you very much. I think I'll just mention that the Rural Youth Project is made possible by the funding of LEADER, and we're a cooperation funded project by Perth and Kinross LEADER, Angus LEADER, Scottish Borders, Lanarkshire and Outer Hebrides LEADER action groups. And I guess I just wanted to round up. There's a couple of things that the Rural Youth Project have upcoming, and we're hoping to launch a leadership and enterprise program within the coming weeks. And I just have a poll that we would love to get your feedback and kind of insight into how often or how we should run this program. So you should see a poll pop up on your screen. I really appreciate it if you could submit your answers. What's been working for you? Have you participated in any kind of leadership or enterprise programs? And what would you prefer? Just got a few more votes coming in. Fab. Thank you, guys. Or a couple more. Fantastic. Thank you, guys. You have said that a 90-minute session delivered once a week for 5 weeks would probably suit you all much better. So we really appreciate your help in helping us determine how frequently we should run this program. And I do have one more poll before I let you go. And that is basically, has this cafe increased your confidence in financing your business project idea? Do you now feel confident that you can set up a Crowdfunder page and that you can take your business idea forward? Fab. Thank you all so much. We're really glad that you got a lot out of this session, and we will send around an email after the session with Owen and Brenda's contact details, because they've kindly said that they're happy for you to contact them, and some more details about Crowdfunder and where you can buy some boozy jam, because that sounds like a great time to me, Owen. Just 2 final things is that we kindly interviewed Owen for our qualitative report, and he's got a case study that sits on our website. So if you want a bit more detail, you want to reference back to his story, you can find it on our website, and we'll also be releasing our qualitative report, which shares a really rich insight into the lives of young people. So we've got a case study on Owen, and we've also got a case study on Ailey's amazing business on the Outer Hebrides. And we're also hosting a climate change webinar on the 12th of August, which is International Youth Day, from 11 a.m. So you can come along and hear from rural young people about how they're having their voice heard on climate action. So thank you guys so much again for taking time out of your Friday, and I hope you're all going to spend it outside in the sun after this.
Okay, thanks.
Fab. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.